Leke Alda is the founder and principal of Alda Consulting, Nigeria's premier creative intelligence organization with offices in London and in Lagos. He is credited with introducing branding as a discipline to Nigeria and has consulted on policy, politics, and businesses at the highest levels at home and abroad. He has consulted on policy formulation for the federal government of Nigeria, the Federal Ministries of Information and Communication, Education, Foreign Affairs, Solid Minerals Development, and others. He has also consulted on political strategy and communication campaigns at national and subnational levels. He was appointed by the federal government to the board of Nigeria Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative and was chairman of the Board of Tenders Committee, as well as chairman of Communications Committee. He has served as a member of the steering committee of Nigeria's hosting of the World Economic Forum on Africa and the chairman's subcommittee on media, host broadcasting, and advertising. He has served as a panelist at the annual African Business Conferences of Harvard Business School, Wharton Business School, and Kellogg School of Management. He has been a speaker at different conferences and universities, such as the Financial Ad Focus Conference in South Africa, the School of Media and Communications, Pan-African University, now Pan-Atlantic University, EDS, Pan-Atlantic University, the Nigerian Bar Association, Women in Management and Business Annual Conference, and The Platform. He is the author of several books and a mentor to young people. He published the popular Letter to Jack and Letter to Jill every Saturday, as well as Illuminaire every Sunday on Twitter. Leke Alda is a lawyer, a polymath, a philanthropist. His foundation, the Leke Alda Foundation, supports 9 orphanages and has impacted the lives of over 150,000 individuals with food, aid, medical, finances, and scholarships.
We're good to go.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, depending on the part of the world you are in. I just want to share some ideas with you. And since this is a Christian platform, I'd like you to know one or two things. The word logo that we use for corporate logo actually came from the book of John. When John said that Jesus is the logos of God. Hold up, please. So when you see logos, it's referring to logo and other things. So when Jesus said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father, what they're saying is that it's the logo of God. Now, what I want to do this afternoon is to share some thoughts with you. I'm not going to share the whole work of branding with you because a lot of information, we can't possibly cover it in 1,000 days. But I'll share some secrets with you about branding and the secrets that we've used for some of our successful brands, and the consultancy. And what I'm looking for is the word coherence. What kills businesses sometimes and what makes a big business successful is the word coherence. Sometimes you see a brand and there are disparate elements that are fighting each other. There's no coherence, there's no thread running through. And I'm showing you the Schiaparelli fashion show photograph. If you watch a Schiaparelli fashion show, you see a thread running through. And that tells you there's a high brand. One flow from one place to another. There's a coherency, there's a thematic thing, there's a flow, there's a progression. That's how to do branding. So let me quickly clarify one or two things before we go on. First of all, that you have a logo doesn't mean that you're a brand. If that were the case, if owning a logo makes you a brand, then everybody is a brand. But there's a lot more that makes you a brand. And a brand compels purchase. A brand is ubiquitous. A brand has presence. A brand inspires trust. So if you are not coherent, if you are not compelling purchase, if you are not ubiquitous, if you are not present, if you are not inspiring trust, you're not a brand. Not to talk of saying that because you're all over the world, you're a global brand. That doesn't make you a global brand. You can't create a brand by designing a logo. You can't create a brand by designing a logo. You have to take a strategic approach to branding. Number two, quality is taken for granted in branding. Quality is taken for granted in branding. I mean, you don't get the iPhone, you don't go to the store and buy an iPhone, and by the time you get home, it doesn't work, or it doesn't come on, or something is wrong with the battery. Quality is consistent. So you'll never see a brand, a proper brand saying we sell quality. It is non-brands that say we sell quality because you are trying to persuade people that you have quality. Brands they don't advertise quality. Even Samsung, even though it doesn't have the cachet of Apple, still doesn't say, oh, this is a quality phone. When you put it on, it will come on, if you try to come on straight on and all that. So these are misconceptions I pull out. Quality is taken for branded or granted in branding. Third assumption, branding is not artwork. Oftentimes you call a brand consultant to help you do some things, and the first thing it does is to send you logos, and it does all sorts of designs and everything. That's not branding. Branding begins on the inside. Okay. Now, if you expect me to define branding for you at this seminar, you're probably in the wrong seminar. And the reason is simple. Life is not going to demand from you what is branding. I mean, nobody is going to ask you on the street what is branding. What life does is it presents scenarios to you, like those scenarios that I was doing when I was in law school. A man was going from Jerusalem to Jericho and he fell among robbers. What are the legal issues that are involved? That's what branding asks of you. Branding is not going to ask you what is a brand. That's too academic. So I'm not going to do that. But I can. There's a helplessness template. And let me give you an example of what I'm saying. To illustrate the fact that branding won't ask you questions, I want to give a case study of a small company. I was very young at this time, probably in my 20s, and these guys came to my office that imported brother typewriters into the country. That was the days when we were using typewriters. Sorry for sounding so ancient. But they had imported brand typewriters into the country, and they had no money to do advertising. They had no money to do billboards. They had no money for marketing. And they said I should perform a miracle, And I was wondering, what do you want me to do? You don't have money to even put an advert in the newspaper, So they said, we trust you, perform a miracle. So I told them to come back 1 week later. So I redesigned their business card, just the business card, nothing else, just their business card. And I wrote on one side, if brother typewriters had existed at the time of Moses, Moses would have used them to write the 10 Commandments. And, and then on the other side, I put their business contact details and everything. Bottom line, this typewriter sold out within a month. Everybody was intrigued by that card, and I got a major retainer from another company based on that card that was paying me then about ₦1 million, which was quite a lot of money in those days. So that's the kind of approach that branding will ask you. You have a small business. How do you grow your business? You have these challenges. So you have to strategically and thematically walk through all these things that I'm saying. So what do you need to brand your business? Why do you need to brand your business? I'll give you 8 reasons. So you have the 8 on the slides. Branding helps your business to stand out. Now that may seem simple, but it's a major factor in branding. If you can't stand out from the crowd, then you are not branded. Number 2, branding increases market share. So if you're after money and profitability, branding is the way to go. You can't just put your things on the shelf and expect people to buy. It has to stand out on the shelf. It has to give you market share, whatever you want, because you have to define your strategic objective. Number 3, branding compels purchase and guarantees purchase. So if, for example, my mother has been using Blue Omo since I was young, she's still using Blue Omo till now. So she keeps on buying the same thing. She doesn't know why she's buying the same thing. She doesn't know that she's a subject of programming, So branding programs people actually to make perpetual to keep perpetual obedience instead of stimuli. You know, you just see new blue Omo. How can Omo be new when I'm 60? But it's still new. Okay. Number 5, branding increases revenue. So your strategy may be I want to increase revenue or I want to increase market share. You know, depending on your strategy, like Amazon lost money for a couple of years before it turned profitable because it was interested more in market share than revenue. So sometimes it can be revenue, sometimes it can be market share. You have to define your strategic objective. Number 6, branding creates a viable business because there's constant constant purchase of your product or service. There's cash flow, and therefore it makes your business viable. Because in business, if you have no cash flow, you are dead. So branding helps you to keep your cash flow going at a minimal cost. Then number 7, branding creates efficiencies through standardization. The more you standardize things in your business, the more efficiencies you achieve. Okay. Number 8, there's a feedback somewhere. Number 8, branding creates a fraud detection mechanism. Let me explain that to you. When we do, say, a business card or a letterhead for our clients, we specify how they will write on the writing specifications. The gauge in the lines, the width of the paragraphs, the width with the readability template and everything. And so we can specify, for example, and set their computer to maybe in between 2 lines. We can say, okay, to be half an inch or a quarter of an inch or 3 point something, millimeter or something. So immediately if you take that letterhead and you do fraud, just by looking at the type thing, they can tell that there's fraud without even going further. So branding helps you detect fraud. There are also secret things like that we put in place just to help the organization guard the security. Branding does that to you, and that's why you must go to a proper brand professional to help you with these things, because these are hidden things that consultants do. Okay, how do you start the branding process? This is the core of what I want to share with you. You don't start a branding process on the outside. You start it on the inside. It's inside your head. People believe that when you start designing externalities, that's how you brand. Let me give you an example of what I'm saying. We are working on a brief right now for a client in our company. And they sent out the brief to a number of branding organizations and said we should put in for the business, pitch for the business. One organization, even without meeting the company, sent in about 150 pages of logo designs. And by the time we got to the strategy session, it turned out that there's a possibility that they will change their name. So what happened? That company started from the outside and it's not going anywhere anyway because it's a waste of money. They'll be branding the wrong name, the wrong business, the wrong structure and everything. And the clients were very, very appreciative of the approach that we took. So branding doesn't start on the outside. Again, don't mistake branding for logo design, okay? Branding starts on the inside. And it starts on your head. There are certain things you need to spell out. The first and the foremost is the definition of the business. Please take that again. The first and foremost is the definition of the business. This is where most SMEs fail, the definition of the business. Now, it sounds so easy, but it's not that easy. If I ask you what is HSBC, for those of you that are in the UK, you probably answer that it's a bank. Am I right? Please comment and let me see whether I'm connecting. Okay. Now, if I say what is HSBC, you're likely to say, oh, a bank. And if I ask you what is Virgin Atlantic, you'll probably answer it's an airline. But those are not definitions. Those are descriptions. They are mere identifications of industry. They are not definitions of those businesses. If you ask HSBC, the bank, the bank will probably tell you that is a world's local bank. Now that's a definition. Now there's a strategic definition, and you need to come up with a defining statement that is as crisp as that in defining your business. So you must be able to define your business conceptually. If you can't do the conceptual definition, then you are on the wrong path. If HS people are, so this is what we do. Once we get the right definition, we can take 2 days, it can take a day of strategy session, it can take an entire hour, depending on the modalities of the business. Then we begin to work out the implications of that definition. So you define the business and then you work out the implications of that definition, because you see, branding is like the sea. You see wave after wave, wave after wave. What builds a strong wave is, there's the waves that are built up before the crash that you see. So branding is like you send this further, then you send another thing, and you send another thing, and all of them work together coherently to build up your brand. So that's how to do it. So once you define the business, you want to look at what are the implications of business. Let me work with you on HSBC. There are about 8 or 10 implications of that definition. I'll read them to you. Number 1, it has to have global presence. If you're the world's local bank, you have to have global presence, isn't it? Number 2, it has to connect all the global points and outlets. Technology has to be major. So you see the link between branding and strategy and strategic objectives of an organization. So because you're the world's local bank, you have to have some technology that connects all those points together. Number 3, in hiring staff to run the bank, you must employ locals. So you won't have British people going to work in America. You have to have Americans working for the bank in America. If they come to Nigeria, you have to have Nigerians, because it's the world's local bank. So it has that local flavor that people want to relate to and want to identify with. And so that builds ownership, sense of ownership in the staff. Number 4, the advertiser can be associate its credentials. I must also depict local hiring. So you can't just go there and be showing us in Nigeria, you can't show us pictures of New York and London without showing us picture of Idumota in Lagos or Festac or something, You have to, because it's the world's local bank, okay? Number 5, the culture of the bank has to be multicultural. So you can't have British culture, you can't have American culture, you can't have Asian culture. It has to be a diverse cultural system, a portfolio of cultures that are melded together to create this organic whole. That's how to go about it, okay? Number 6, each region must produce a P&L because it's a world's local bank. So each region must produce a P&L that is commensurate with its locality. So London cannot be relying on the profitability of America. So that drives efficiencies and profitability within the organization. Number 7, the name of the bank must be globally accessible. So when you come up with the name of a business, ask yourself, where are you likely to do business? Maybe in America, maybe in Asia. What does this word mean in America? What does it mean in Asia? There are instances when people have mistakenly named their businesses and it's abusing the people, and they don't know, so that happens. It must not be offensive to regions. For example, when we're working on a brief for the Minister of Education in Nigeria, we had to be careful not to come up with motifs and logos that depict something wrong in the North. So you have to check local sensibilities. And these are the things that your brand consultant should do for you. Now, the bank, it also means that the bank must lose its original name. The original name was Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation. You can't say you are Hong Kong and Shanghai Banking Corporation and be a local bank, and be a local and retain that name and claim to be the world's global bank, local bank. It's not going to work. So it has to lose its name. That's why it became an alphabet soup. Now, there's a strategic direction to become an alphabet soup. I see people that just start with their business and say HAK. You don't start with alphabet soup because it's the easiest thing to forget unless you pump a lot of money into promoting it. So IBM became IBM because it was international business machine. Now that sounded old and dated in the age of computers, so they had to change their name to IBM. So you don't start with alphabet soup because there's so many alphabet soups out there and you have got to make your mark. And remember, you have to stand out. So there's so many alphabet soups, some you can't even remember. If some of you recollect, sometimes you go to events and people give you cards, business cards, and on getting on, you just throw it into the dustbin. And people don't know how they think that's the way to get business. You won't get business that way, except when your name is forgettable. Excuse me, let me just take some water. Number 9, the headquarters has to be a global financial center, like the UK or US or Hong Kong. So you can't be the world's local bank and not have headquarters in a major financial center. Number 10, English has to become the adopted language of the business, because English is the language of the internet. English is the language of business. It's not French, it's not Spanish, it's English. So that's why you find Chinese people learning English as well as Chinese, because English is the language of business. Now, all these things that I'm talking about HSBC also inform the branding process. And you can see the definition of the business affects design of the logo. So if you don't define your business properly, then you can't get the logo right. That's why I keep on telling you that logo is not artwork. It's not, oh, it looks fancy, it looks nice. It's not about lines, it's whether it delivers on the promises of the brand. I must look at the logo and see the brand at the same time. The same way that if I look at Jesus, I'm seeing God at the same time, because it's the logo of God. So that's the whole idea. So Jesus knew about branding. Okay. Now let's look at Virgin Atlantic, or Virgin. Most people think that Virgin is a small business, actually composed of about 170 something companies. There are ones that the ones that are what you call the image brands of branding of Virgin. There are many that you don't know: Virgin Financial, Virgin Bridal, Virgin Fitness. There's so many. It's running what you call a monolithic brand architecture. Want the same logo, the same name all throughout all the businesses. The danger in that, though, that if something happens to the image brand, it affects everybody. So, they have all this brand architecture issues, which I don't want to introduce into this lecture. But if you look at the fundamentals, you'll understand why Virgin is so cheeky and so irreverent, because that's to maintain its identity. When you call an airline Virgin and the color is red, that suggests a bit of naughtiness and adventure. Okay, so the name is fun and cheeky. It's unusual for an airline. The color suggests passion. Their air hostesses are young and beautiful. You won't find that on British Airways. So when they hire young and beautiful women, it's not because they're looking for fine girls. It's a strategic pursuit of their brand, because it's called Virgin. Okay. There's a bar on board if you're in first class. So you go there, you chat with the air hostesses and everything. They're just doing their job. They're not interested in you emotionally or in terms of anything. They're just doing their job. But it's consistent with the brand. So you see this consistency in the Virgin brand, and that's why it's strong. The marketing is cheeky and suggestive. I don't want to mention Virgin Atlantic marketing, But if you go through their old adverts, you see that they're very cheeky and very irreverent. But you can see the coherence in the sense that Richard Branson himself is very adventurous. He's the chief advertiser of the brand. So the man is not jumping out of airplanes because he likes to risk his life. He's promoting a business brand. And most people don't know that. And you'll hardly see him jump out of airplanes where there are no cameras, because he knows what he's doing. He was a personification of the brand, and he shared that now, to make the brand more institutional. But he used to jump out of airplanes and have adventures and all that. And he hardly wears ties. There are many pictures of Richard Branson. If you find 10% in which he's wearing tie, it would be a miracle. It's not a state airline unlike its competitor British Airways. Now, that doesn't mean that Virgin is better than British Airways, because British Airways is state. It's just that that's the strategic approach that British Airways is taking. Don't be fooled, however, by all that jumping around and fine girls and bar and all those things on Virgin. It has sound a business, really sound professionals who understand figures and operations behind the scene. So remember, a brand doesn't advertise quality. So it has this back end. Now, the point I'm trying to say is that if your logo is fine, your office is fine, your advertisement is fine, but you can't deliver on what you promised, you can't deliver on the work itself. That's like going to a restaurant that looks so fine, but the food is terrible. It won't last in business. So the machinery behind the brand has to be so strong, has to be so powerful, so efficient, and so good that it delivers flawlessly on the brand. So that makes it easy for the brand to make promises. For example, if you promise that you're going to deliver goods in 7 days and 10 days people have not received their group, it's going to affect the brand, because brand promises, people take it seriously. And when you consistently fail in your brand promises, there's a problem. It's like tailors in Nigeria in December, they take more than they can sew, and they keep on promising everybody, oh, December 24th, you get your dress, but they can't keep it. And that's why those businesses don't last. because there's only so much that the business people can take. I mean, December, you disappointed me in 1999, you disappointed me in 2019, you disappointed me in 2024. I mean, common sense says that they should look for another tailor. So they think that they are being smart by getting in all the orders and retaining all the money, but they don't know that they're destroying the business. So that's why those businesses don't last, because business is built on fundamentals, basic fundamentals. If you obey those fundamentals, you succeed. Okay. Now, let's try British Airways for contrast to Virgin. Okay. Now, while Virgin is avant-garde, British Airways is conservative. It's a staid British, it's an institutional brand. It is selling British tradition, nothing else. It's all about Britishness. And for this reason, you find royal blue. So again, you now start seeing the importance of colors in branding. Because it's a conservative organization and it's linked to royalty and Britishness, there has to be royal blue in it. The hostesses are not glamorous. They're anti-Jane, they get the job done. Because the customers of British Airways are not looking for fine girls. They're looking for efficiency, delivery, tradition, all those things. So you must know what your customers want and stick to that and not try to be like another company. In 1990, for example, British Airways spent £60 million switching from the Union flag on its tail to this global multicultural thing, and it backfired heavily. So much so that they had to redesign all those things and go back and redesign a new logo. Branding can be expensive at that level. But because they moved away from their core, they didn't realize that what the people wanted was Britishness. They thought, okay, now that they're a global company and everything and all that. So, but the reason I put patronize British Airways is about Britishness. You are sure of safety, not because a plane cannot crash, but because you associate the British with steadiness. So now, let me help you. This is what I'm saying. You have to design your brand conceptually and look at the implications of that brand and look at failure factors that can arise from your branding. So let me take that again. You define the brand, you look at the implications of that definition, and then you look at failure factors and mitigate against them. Well, let's go to part 2 of this lecture, the branding in the digital era. Now, there are 6 words regulating the digital era. They are data, speed, cheap, community, creativity, and AI. Let me repeat that. Data, speed, cheap, community, creativity, and AI. Now, I'll put that on the slide. I hope you can see the digital layer. You can see those 6 things: data, speed, cheap, community, creativity, and AI. Now, let me take you through those factors. You collect data. You must collect data in the digital age. That's the essence of the digital age. That's the advantage of the digital age. For example, if I advertise on Twitter, I know how many interactions I have, I know how many sales I have, I know how many likes I have. I can collect a lot of data on my customers just by looking at the data. So data doesn't need to be domain or buy big Oracle machine or any of those things. If you collect data at the local level or at the intimate level, you will be able to get a lot of information about your customers. For example, you know where they live, you know their age range, you know their likes and dislikes, you know who their friends are. So that gives you an opportunity to do repeat marketing. So it's targeted advertising, which is what Google and Facebook do. They do targeted advertising based on the data they collected from you. So once they notice that you are interested in a particular, say, architecture, you just start getting architecture feeds and you think it's a miracle. How did they know that? It's because your data feed, your data is based on architecture, is depicting architecture. Then they check the data of your friends. If there's enough, if there's another person that has architecture, they start sending you what their guy is seeing, and it grows on like that. So you have to collect data. Now, the simplest example, the best example of data collection in the UK that I know is Zara. It's incredible what Zara does. Every other person makes a collection for the season. Zara does a collection, changes the collection every 2 weeks. So the store is always fresh and they're restocking the things that people want. There are actually people in the store that are monitoring all these things, but you won't know that who they are. And they have machines and everything, but you won't know. And so the turnover is fast. So you see the link between data collection and speed and efficiency and profitability. So some companies, for example, I remember when we did the first brand report on Nigerian banks in Nigeria, yeah. We checked what the banks were advertising. We went through a whole year of newspaper advertisements and we checked what the banks were advertising. Then we asked the customers of those banks what they want. Bottom line, the banks are wasting their money, because they want collecting data on their clients. So when the customers say they want partnership, the banks are advertising technology, all their mission statement contain the word technology and all those things, and they were missing it. I'm saying that collection of data doesn't have to be something that is very expensive or sophisticated or anything. You ought to know your customers. You ought to know what you call the enterprise public, the people who are interested in your brand, but may not buy. But they spread the word about your brand and everything. So data is very important. And it's not just Zara that collects data. Other classic examples are Armani and all those brands. They collect data on you, okay? So, and because of that data, to freshen the brand more, Zara recently changed its logo. Now, you may not notice it, but as a brand consultant, I'll notice. So they came up with a bolder typeface, squeeze it together and everything, and that's Zara for you. So they collect data, and on the other hand, Gap and typical fashions in the story, Gap went down at a point because of data collection problem. So they are guessing what the people will do. So they sew for the entire season, and they can't change until next year. So if they miss it in their prognostication or in their prophecy, there's trouble for the brand. And also happened to Gap, okay? So in whatever you do, you need what you call feedback. Even in your business, I'm not talking about with the customers only, I'm talking in-house. So for example, when I finish this presentation, I'm going to ask people who saw it for feedback. How was it? Because feedback is data, which you put into, and I can't draw a chart for you now, that's one of the limitations of the internet, of the Zoom, but you look back the interactions of the feedback from the customers, you look it back into input, because it's an input material. So if today we say, oh, I love red, thank you for the red, the next season, red is showing, because it's data, it's information. So you have to aggressively mine information as much as you can. Number two, the internet is cheap. The digital age makes advertising very cheap. So you have to take advantage of that. Social media is so cheap, it's unbelievable. You need to know how much the classic media costs relative to social media. So you have to know how to leverage social media. Number three, you have to be committed in the digital age. Yemi has spoken about some of my postings. I do a series called Random. Just short way of depicting the Bible and explaining God to people. Now I have to post that thing 6:30 every morning, 6:30 a.m. every morning, consistently for years. I have to write 2 weeks in advance. Then at a certain point, maybe after an hour or two after posting, I have to go back to the timeline, answer problems or questions that people want to ask. There's consistency. So that makes people go to the page regularly and want to know what is he going to say now? Because I'll just come at you from a very unusual angle and then I'll pull Jesus out of it, but there's that consistency. Most people are not ready to be consistent. If you need followership, you need to be consistent. Your followers are your broadcasters. That scripture that says the Lord gave the word and great was the company of them that published it. I'm using modern expression, but that's the biblical basis for the social media. So you give one word and people help you, to transfer it and to amplify it. So social media is scriptural. Yeah. Number four, don't fight yourself on social media. And this is what I mean. You have a corporate account for your business and you say you are a bank or something serious. And then your next post, you talk about interest earning and all those things. And we're all interested. Oh, she knows about accounts, she knows about investments and everything. And then the next post, we see you dancing in a fashion shop, because everybody dances, and everything. So that's how you begin to fight yourself. You're spending your own money against yourself. Means defining yourself in the market. So even for your personal branding, you have to conceptually define yourself. What do you want to be known as? You want to be known as an entertainer, a sports person, a chef, an intelligent person. It depends on you. So if, for example, you say you're an intellectual, even if you write about Christianity, you must be intellectual. You can't tell us what the pastor will say in the church, because that's not the reason we're coming to your page. It's just that unusual approach, that creativity, that high-level thinking. The creativity, that's what people want. So in defining yourself, don't fight yourself and don't spend your money against yourself. Okay, number 5, deploy AI. Everyone talks about ChatGPT, but there's too many AI tools right now. Too many. In fact, there are at least 24 AI marketing tools on the internet right now that are free. At least 24. Established fashion brands are using this to design their adverts. So they're also cutting costs by using AI to design their adverts. And I'm talking about H&M, Adidas, Levi, Burberry, Nike, Prada, ASOS, Dior, Gucci, and Tommy Hilfiger. These brands are using the AI to do all these things. If they are doing all those things, how much more you? How much less you? So, and the digital age is natural to this generation. It's just so natural because God capacitates the generation, they become more intelligent than the older generation. That's just the way God does things. Because He says that every man that comes to the world, is touched by the light, is enlightened by Jesus as we are coming into the world. So there's deposited data in your heart before you come into the world. And the information that the younger generation have is so much more than the information that my generation had. The same way that the information that I had is so much more than my father's generation. So you have to deploy AI tools, search the internet, scour through, ask Grok or Google to tell you all the AI tools that are available for marketing, for HR, for all sorts of things. The information is there. So the problem that you have now is not lack of information. It is lack of knowledge. Because you can have all the information at your fingertips and you have no knowledge. So again, it goes back to what we're saying. Think through everything. Okay? Now let me round up by reminding you of the main things that we've spoken about. Branding starts by in your head. If I were you, I'll put a notebook by my bedside, or I'll put my phone by my bedside. If you're the one that, if you're the like that takes notes on phones, I take notes on my phone. I write a lot on phone, but my phone is always by my bedside. And when you have an idea, don't say, oh, when I wake up in the morning, it will go. Just jot it down. I always advise my mentees, I said to them, get a notebook, any project, any idea that comes to the head, write it down. It may make sense, it may not make sense, it may work out, it may not work out, but write it down. You are putting together the bits and pieces of something that you don't know. Phrases and ideas, words and inferences. Sometimes you have to be able to think outside the box, which is the problem with many people. So I studied medicine. All I know is about biology and medicine and drugs and everything. You got to read wide. When I was in university, I read law, by the way. The year that I really appreciated in my law study was in my year 1. No law studies, no law textbook, nothing. We studied sociology, English, literature, economics, religious studies, philosophy, Greek philosophy, logic, add maths, and boy, I was in heaven. I was just in heaven. And I get to part 2 of law, and it became so boring. I wanted to leave the school, In fact, it was so bad that I would leave the school and come back down to Lagos. I'll leave Ife and come down to Lagos to go and play with my friend and attend medical school with him. So we'll go for lectures together. It's a miracle I passed my exams. But I'm just saying that it turns out that year 1 is what I need for what I'm doing right now. All that loss, yes, law gave me thinking, discipline, and all those kind of things, logic and all those things. But the real resources that I needed was year one. And I remember in that year one, I remember maybe 5 days to exams, I'll go to the library and I'll be studying the brain and just anything that seems so disparate and everything. And I couldn't fail my exams because I hated law, and so that my parents don't shout about waste of money. But it was those extra things that enrich my cultural outlook that makes me be able to do what I'm doing right now. You can't be a business person and not understand finance, and not understand sociology, and not understand economics, and not understand customer service. There are some things that you have to know. You have to be culturally literate. The more culturally literate you are, the better for your business. So I'm saying, sit down, look at certain companies that you would like to be like, study them. Write down the things that come to your notebook and keep on writing and keep on writing. And then one day you are going to get the definition. The definition is not so easy. Most likely the first definition you have is not the definition. So you have to think, you have to dig in and everything. And then once you do that, write out the implications of that definition. There are implications to every definition. There are implications to every definition. So you got to write out the implications. And then when you write out the implications, then you act on those implications. Then you'll have been doing branding very well. Well, I finished the lecture. I hope it has been, I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. There's so much in there. I've been writing and writing and writing and capturing quite a bit. There's a whole lot in there. Thank you very much. And yet we've only just scratched the surface. Thank you, Leke, for your time. We want to make plenty of room for questions. If you have any question you'd like to ask, please post them right now. This is certainly an opportunity. The next time you call Alder Consulting, you'll have to bring out your checkbook. But you have the privilege today of tapping into the wisdom of our dear friend. So let's post. I have 2 questions here and the third one, but we'll make some little bit of time. Don't waste any time. Just go ahead now, posting whatever questions you want our moderator to speak to. So okay, we'll start with what we have here. It says, if revenue increases, does that not translate to an increase in market share?
No. And it depends on your financial structure. For example, you may go after market share at a loss. You can do that. Amazon did it, and Jeff Bezos did not return any money to his shareholders for years because he knew that the more market share he had, the more valuation the company has. So he wasn't chasing revenue. He wasn't chasing profitability. He wasn't even chasing break-even at a point. He just wanted market share to increase the revenue so that the value of the shares will increase. So that you have market share doesn't mean you increase revenue. That you have increased revenue doesn't mean you increase market share. Both are different strategies. Now, it doesn't mean that you won't get money. You'll get some money. But if you go after market share, for example, you may put out some products as loss leaders. For example, if you go to a supermarket, you see some things that are ridiculously cheap relative to a competitor. It's just a loss leader because they know that once you buy that, you buy other things from the company. And that's the whole idea. So it depends on your strategy. I'm saying that we have to take strategy, not limit strategy to the Fortune 500 companies or the big companies or the PLCs and all those things. I'm saying take strategy into your SME operation because you would need strategy anyway. Listen, there's a reason that these companies pay a lot of money because they value wisdom, which they don't have. So the average bank, for example, has at least 24 sets of consultants, from security to technology to branding to communication to HR to customer service, at least 24 sets of consultants. And they are obeying what the Bible says. The Bible says, buy wisdom and sell it not. So they buy wisdom. Now, having bought wisdom, they focus on operations. So they collect all the information and then they execute. That's another thing some people don't do. You do all the work, but you don't execute. And you have to review your business at least quarterly, especially at the start, to see how well you are doing, where you are missing it, and all those kind of things. The data is available. It's just that people don't use what they have. Okay, so it's not the same revenue. It's not the same thing as market share.
Thank you for that. That's a really comprehensive answer. Thank you. The second one is almost as it were a business case study. It says, I run a language class promoting Yoruba language and culture online. If English is a language of business, how do I ensure that I remain in business without losing impact?
It's very simple. What are those who need Yoruba language? You have to identify them and where they are, and then focus and then structure your business to deliver on that to them. So who are those that are interested in cultural studies? It's not just that they want to speak Yoruba. They may just be interested in cultural studies. Some are interested in gods. I remember I was asked to deliver a lecture on AI and Christianity, and I had to do research on the gods of Yoruba land, and the equivalents in the Bible and things like that. Because you find that when you study the Bible, you find that Satan has been rebranding himself, different names. The same guy who called himself Zeus to the Greeks, is now Shango to the Yorubas, and I've forgotten what he is to the Easterners now. So Satan understands branding, Amadioha, and to the Easterners. He's the same guy, Baal has been repackaged as another religion right now. It's a world religion, It's the same guy. So if Satan knows about branding, you should know better.
Excellent. Thank you so much. One that I have, and please send the questions sooner rather than later. One that I have, it was very interesting to hear you speak about not fighting yourself, staying consistent to your brand. But the interesting thing about social media today is that it is more attracted to the irreverent. So, people want the more controversial, the more outlandish, the more less visceral and more gossipy. How do you set yourself apart as a serious knowledge-based concept in such a chaotic, noisy space where everybody is about
the proof that you're on the wrong path is when you pitch your business to them, find out how many of those guys will buy your goods. Yeah. Do you understand? There are all these riffraffs on social media, and the phone has given people a lot of power. Especially the power of anonymity. I can abuse somebody from here, and the person will never know I'm the one. There was an occasion on social media. There was a guy that I paid for his school. I paid his school fees in America, but they didn't know I was the one who paid the school fees. And was abusing me on social media because I spoke about Jesus. I didn't call him. I didn't tell him anything. I just learned a lesson from it. And be careful how you throw stones in the market. But once you define yourself, then execute yourself. You can't try to be like the essence of, branding is built on the four assumptions of the law of demand and supply. For example, the first assumption says a standard commodity is offered by numerous sellers to numerous buyers. In other words, if you are selling what everybody is selling, you'll be standardized, you'll be a standard, you'll be commoditized. That's why pure water in Nigeria doesn't sell more expensive than the next, because it's a commoditized entity. However, if your pure water can take you to the moon, say if you drink 1 glass of pure water, you land on the moon, then you set yourself apart. You become holy, so to speak, or sanctified. So you're looking for that difference, and you're looking for your customers, not just anybody passing by or making comments. And there are guys who sleep on the internet or social media from morning till night, all in abuses, just passing by, scrolling, just commenting on things they know nothing about. They don't even read some of the things, they just comment, So you're looking for your customers because you're a serious organization. The question is, what attitude, your marketing can be fun without you destroying your business. You can, there are many things you can do. The thing about social media is don't be formal, because an informal platform, Don't be too straight-laced, don't be too rigid. For example, in my posts, I don't use proper English. I don't speak Queen's English, I write as I speak, So like what I said now, I write as I speak, I'll put, because I want to have a conversation with the people. So evolve your own style. You can be fun, and what I'm writing is highly intellectual, and people are still following. So I've attracted atheists, rationalists, agnostics, Christians, Muslims. I mean, name it, Hindu, New Agers, and everything, because that's the idea of the platform. So in the same way, what is the idea of your platform? What are you trying to do? How can you do it more creatively? Don't do what everybody is doing. You will set you up, you become commoditized. And then you're going to have price pressure when there's commoditization. Because what happens is that you now start bidding against each other on price. Do you understand what I'm saying? So
absolutely. Absolutely. No
so
distinct feature like anybody else. Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent. We have
don't
two
fight
more.
yourself.
One is
You can't be counter to yourself.
that's true. You can't contradict yourself. Stay true to your own identity. Excellent. No, this has been beautiful. And if we have time, I'll come back to the question of how you manage to fuse talking about scripture with daily life. And you are probably one of the very few commentators who has taken challenging topics and been able to present it in a way that is not that doesn't cause conflict, but encourages dialogue, and that is very interesting to see. So I'd like to come back to that if we have time. But there are two more comments, such inputs. One of them is like a comment, really. It says, "Thank you, sir, for the value add. From my experience, I see people jump straight to execution with little or no thought around why they are doing what they do." You spoke to that. I would think the place to start is to know and understand the why. What is your take, sir? So I guess you spoke about this, but you want to amplify that a bit more.
It's okay if the why is linked to the market, because you're not a philosopher, you're a businessman. So why are you doing your business has to be linked to the market, which means that you have to link your why to the needs of the people, or something that is not available in the market, or something that needs to be added to something in the market, So because if you go to why, you can arrive in heaven, there's no end to that travel. But if it's linked to the market, why am I doing this? Because children don't have chicken every morning. Now I can provide the chicken, okay? Why don't children have chicken in the mornings? Because their parents don't keep chickens. So I can provide chickens to the parents. Why is it that chickens scarce? Because there are no eggs. So let me provide eggs, So the why is linked to the market in that way. In the same way, when you define your vision and your mission, especially your mission, link it to the market. Don't go for that mistake of saying that the mission is the way to achieve the vision. It's not true. Because what you've done at that stage is to turn the mission into strategic objectives. So define your vision, define your mission, and write strategic objectives for each. Okay. So why is okay, but why not as a philosopher? Your name is not Socrates. You're a businessman or woman.
Absolutely. You're here to do business. Interesting. We have a few more in the little time we have left. How do you balance authenticity with the need to attract or sell to different audience segments? So I think this person is thinking about reaching as wide an audience while seeking to be authentic. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It depends on the kind of business you are doing. There are some, businesses that are straightforward, but there are some businesses like ours that it's a matter of right brain and left brain, and I have to believe in what I'm saying. I set that standard for myself that it's easy to make money as a consultant, just speaking consultanese, but over time you'll be found out, So when I go into a project with a client, I mean it. I'm very much interested in success. I mean, think about it. We have clients that have been with us for 30 years. And we have staff that have been with us for over 25 years, some 30 years. So it's because of the authenticity. They know that we mean what we say. So when we work for a client, we don't limit ourselves to the brief. We think deep on what the client should be achieving. And then we go to the clients and this is what they will do, it should go. We've been known to advise clients not to advertise because they don't need it, even though we'll make a lot of money from advertising, you know. But our model, it depends on your business model also. Our business model is not based on commission. We make commission, but it's not based on commission. It's based on brain work. So you have to know what you are selling and be true to yourself. Because if you lose yourself, then there's no authenticity. And a brand has to be authentic. If you see an iPhone, you know it's different from Samsung. It's not that both of them are not good phones, but iPhone is iPhone. So that's how you achieve authenticity. Be yourself. Be true to yourself. And if you say something, mean it. Think through, mean it. That when you make brand promises, you fulfill it. So there are intrinsic promises, there are generic promises, there are specialty promises, 3 levels of promises. Omo washes brighter and it shows. That is a major promise. Panadol cures headache fast. Now, you didn't say Panadol cures headache. That's generic promise. You said it cures headache fast. You must deliver on that fast. And I'm saying that a lot of that has to do, at the simplest level, at the most basic level, you're talking about delivering on a promise on delivery date. So if you promise your clients, let me give you a story, and I think I put in one of my books. I was working for the Italian embassy, the Italian Cultural Institute, and they called me and they said, can you deliver this program and invitation cards within a week? It should take 2 or 3 weeks. And I made a promise that I will deliver it now, and only that NEPA was working against me. So I did everything I could, and NEPA just struck. And I was printing in Shomolu in those days. Shomolu is the printing hub in Lagos. You know, there are a lot of contract printers. We searched for generator everywhere. Unfortunately, they love parties in Shomolu. This was a Friday. So everybody was at the party. All the generators were out. And then we finally got one generator. And we put it on. After 1 minute, I understood why nobody took it. Nobody rented it. But NEPA, I pray to God, and NEPA brought light. You know, if you're not in Nigeria, you won't appreciate what I'm saying. You know, it's a major thing. And I mean, I pray to God. We were mixing ink with my headlights. You know, I'm printing in the dark. You know, why did I do that? Because I made a promise to the client I'll deliver on a certain day. And when I got to the client, you know, I mean, the client, I didn't tell him, the officer, I didn't tell him what I went through, what it took me and everything, because it's none of his business. He made a promise, whatever it takes to fulfill that promise, you do. Because that brings reliability. And then it goes to the ethical level in the sense that they'll be able to recommend you and know that you're not going to disappoint people or shaft them. So those things are important. Authenticity is important, but not the way we think it. But I'm also saying that if you're a creative person, and all of us are, just look at what makes your product different. How can you make your product different from what everybody is doing? But if you're creative, you also know that you're on the back of a tiger, because you sweat to create, another people just copy. So you have to be continuously creative. You know, at a point in Nigeria, I had this advertising agency who says that they're doing branding. And what the guy does is that he just dubs our website. You know, he even dubbed our marketing slogan. We changed our marketing slogan thrice because of this guy. Why? Because we've done all the work. You know, he just copies. So you are infinitely creative. People don't realize that. You are infinitely creative. And you do creativity every day, it's just that you don't realize it. I remember I did some adverts for a company, and every day I wrote a different advertisement for the entire year.
Wow.
You can do it. Because what advertising agencies used to do in those days was they would develop an advert and run it for 6 months. The same advert. So the customer, the clients, they lose interest. But then I gave myself a challenge of writing an advert every day till the end of the year, and I did it. But the result was incredible. That company went from 0 to 100 million in 6 months. It became a cult follow. It had a cult followership. I mean, people will come to the reception of the, oh God, it's like a club. It was like a club.
Wow.
And of course, they increased my retainer.
Of course. Oh, absolutely wonderful. No, really, truly is an eye-opener. Pathfinders is actually essentially about budding entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. It's about people who either are already well established in business, but mostly largely nascent businesses that are still on the takeoff curve, as well as people in employment. I like the fact that you spoke about personal branding, marking out who you are and what value proposition you bring. I'd like you to speak a little bit about that from a non-commercial context, but the fact that every one of us is in the business of branding and how we position ourselves.
Okay, it's very simple. If you go to Genesis 1, or also Genesis 3 and all that, or 2 and 2, you find a very powerful statement, and God made man in his image after his likeness.
Yeah.
Okay, now we don't know what God looks like, but there's image and there's likeness. Image is not image, the way we define it in the Bible. It's a technical word which deals with concept. So it's like what I was telling you, define yourself and then progress yourself. So for example, if you define yourself as an academic, I expect to see you in bow tie, and chalk and whatever. If you say you are intellectual, it's going to be crazy a little, and everything. If you say you sell palm oil, I expect you to be, open your boot and find palm oil. I'm just saying, manifest yourself. So there is the image, which is a concept, and there's a likeness, which is a manifestation. So you start from the inside and you progress outside. But the inside and the outside must not have a dissonance gap. Because in life, a dissonance gap is a problem. And not just in branding, but in life, a dissonance gap is a problem. If you are not what you say you are, people will not trust you. Every time there's a gap, there's a problem in life. Whether the gap of a parent, or whether the gap of a sister or mother, or gap of knowledge, or any of those things. So all God is trying to do is to plug the gap. So you must not create a gap for yourself, because you're going to have problems. It's like a pastor who goes to a brothel. The external doesn't match the concept. And that's where the problem is. And anytime the two don't flush, there's a problem in Naira. So in the same way, you want to brand yourself as something, you got to work it out, and the likeness has to match the image. Am I making sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. We're building constantly towards the image that God has placed upon us. And so everything must be in sync.
That statement that I made, you can't imagine the implications of that statement. That's how we started all that consulting, was just that statement. And a lot of charts and graphs that are involved, there are a lot of equations that are involved in that one statement. A lot of equations. And when I started and I broke it down, I called my friends, and because I thought I was mad, So I called my friends and I said, look, I wrote them letters, let's have an intellectual fest, and I said, okay, I have some ideas. If I'm talking the truth, you guys add to it. But if I'm talking nonsense, please shoot it down before I go and shoot myself in public. And these guys came from at 10 o'clock, they stayed till 6 p.m., no food. And then by the next, they started writing me. I didn't know that was what you call seminar. I was very young. I was in my 20s, and I never worked in a consultancy. I never worked in an advertising agency. I never worked in a corporation. I only worked in a law firm for 1 or 2 years, including Youth Corps. So here I am with this thing, But you know what? The breakdown of that passage was so powerful that within a month, I was consulting for banks. And the results were showing. The results were showing. And so I built up organically. You save yourself a lot of advertising budget. If you are honest, if you are true to what you say, and if you are authentic, you save a lot in advertising. In fact, I once boasted to a client that I'm sure that if we place an advert in the newspaper and it's mostly an empty page, that people will call us. and I carried out it. We bought advert space in 2 newspapers, was blank, and then at the bottom we just put all that is a creative intelligence organization. And we put www.allthatconsult.com, and people started calling us.
Oh, wow. Wow. For real, actually.
For real. I can give you the name of the client.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Amazing. It's just getting people
creative.
to start a thing. Mm.
You have to believe in your own creativity because you are made in the image and likeness of God. You have imagination. So if you have image, you cannot have imagination. Because image is a concept, an abstract entity, it's an abstract entity. Yes. Now we don't know what God looks like. We don't know his material format, but we know about his image. But there's a concept of God. We know he has a hand. We know he sees. We know he doesn't sleep. We know that it's dangerous to cross him when he says he's sovereign. We know he's a businessman from the parable of talents. We know he's an army general from what we see in the Revelation. So you have all these things. We have an image of God. We have an image of the Trinity. But the likeness is supposed to be manifested through us. So Jesus came in the flesh to manifest the image that God has. Because he was the one creating in Genesis. It wasn't God the Father. It wasn't God the Holy Spirit. Only when it came to the intellectual property of man, that's when the Father and the Holy Spirit were involved. Jesus was the mad creator in Genesis. That's when there was a problem. It was called to fix it.
Excellent. Praise God. We have a few more. We're going to try and pull them together. Let's see. It says, I think you've spoken to these, so unless you want to add anything else to it. It says, what are the biggest risks brands face in today's world of social media that everyone is on it? I think that speaks to what you were saying about the uniqueness, the distinctiveness of messaging.
And manage your information, because that's what the internet is all about. Manage impressions, manage information. I'm saying that you have to think strategically. Yeah. And stop. We should stop all this thinking disparately. You have to focus your thinking, your thought patterns. Yeah. I want to build this company into a multi-billion naira business or multi-billion dollar business. That becomes your goal. How do I achieve it? I need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Your goal is set in life. Every morning you must face those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
Yeah, social media is a tool and use it to support your strategy.
Yeah.
Is what I'm hearing.
It wasn't invented so that people can post pornography. It was invented by you. The idea wasn't Satan's, it was God's.
It's a marketplace. It's a universal marketplace.
It's the easiest way to evangelize.
Excellent. Okay, I think this is quite clear. It is good to do what you enjoy. Is it necessary to enjoy all we do, or how can we get to do only what we enjoy?
It's not an issue. Whatever you are doing, enjoy it. Don't take yourself too seriously. When it gets tough, go to the cinema. Go to the cinema. I mean, there's always all that. It sounds philosophically great and everything, but that's no value in the real world because you'll never arrive.
Absolutely. What's interesting and what I would like to also leave with people is that everybody is in the market. Everybody is a product. So even I, in the office of a pastor, had to sit down and say, who is my market? Who is my audience? And I remember saying to my people that when people go to work Monday to Friday, they're in a certain kind of environment. When they come to church on Sunday, I want them in that same kind of environment. And that's what influenced our presentation, even as a church. And what did it lead to? A lot of millennials and Gen Zs now call TC home because they come there and it looks like the environment they want to be in. So consistency, avoid dissonance, and I think that is so.
You have to consult for some churches because 21st century church is a different church from the 1st century church. There's more sophistication. There's more issues, more and the new nation is an autocracy. So there has to be new thinking.
It has to be new thinking.
It has to be new thinking, and you have to take risk. Just be bold and create an advert that's crazy. You don't
But
lose
can we
anything.
context this though? Can we context this because we live in a world where there's so much libertarianism. There's so much um, everything goes, or all things are expedient. Can we context this within? You must have your own boundaries, which I know you mean that we're a body of Christians. So while we have freedom to express, we must also contain that within the elements that back our standing in faith.
That is easily curable by true values.
Mm.
I've studied the obituaries of many companies, both global and Nigeria. And the one thing that kills companies the most is values.
Mm.
And Enron was values. At Anderson, it was values. I mean, I can name you 100 banks in Nigeria that were killed because of values. So if you're a Christian, those things are just abstractions of the scriptures.
Mm.
So if you study the scriptures very well, you see all these things. They are there. Solomon, for example, teaches you how to negotiate. He says utterly worthless, says the buyer. Then afterwards, he boasts about his bargain. In other words, if you tell to me that this thing is £100, I have to prove to you that it's utterly worthless, but it's not more than £10. It's the bargaining process. It's there in the Bible. It's just that people are too religious.
Wow, this has really truly been amazing, and most certainly people would need to listen to it again and again. Thank you so much, Leke, for your time. For you're really truly a gift, not just to the body of Christ, but also to our nation and the business world. And may God continue to grace you more and more in what you do, and keep you well for us. I shall certainly be looking forward to our dinner or lunch when next I'm in Lagos, or if you happen to come to London, because we have a lot more to unpack, even on a one-on-one basis. So we will definitely be doing that. Just as we look to round up this session and before we go into the next, we offer these under the platform, the auspices of Trinity Chapel, and it is freely received and freely given. But we'd like to give opportunity. We're a Christian community, and we all understand the importance of putting seed in the ground. And we would also like to do a thing or two as a ministry, even though our speakers have volunteered their time freely. So I'd like to urge us in just a few moments, if you would like to give towards this, if this was at Harvard or Wharton or London Business School, or indeed even a commercial seminar, we know what we would have paid for this kind of time. So no pressure, but you don't need to be encouraged to give. So they will put up on the screen or somewhere the giving link. I want to urge us to spend a few, I'll just give a little bit towards the cost or the budget towards this seminar. It is virtual, but there are costs that we are and will be carrying. And so if you want to support that, please at this time, do so. And then we will be taking Lankwe is here. Lankwe Omoyele, my good friend and buddy, is here as well. And we will take a 2-minute comfort break, just 2 minutes. Go stretch your legs, go to the powder room, and we will be starting promptly. If I would have said 1 minute, so we can start at 5:19, but 5:21 for what it is worth. So please come right back in 2 minutes. But before you go, use the link on the screen, PayPal, the account, whatever it is. Give a little token, just something to say thank you, Lord, for this seed that has been sown today, and it will germinate and bear fruit in Jesus' name. Leke, thank you so much for your time. You're welcome to remain with us if your time permits, but I think you have another schedule. And in just 2 minutes, we'll be welcoming Lankwe. God bless you, and take a comfort break for 2 minutes. To the team, are we ready? Are we good to go?
Yes, sir, we're good to go, sir.
Excellent. So you want me to go straight into introducing Pastor Lankwe?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. Well. So sorry to have overrun by a little bit. Lankwe, I'm certain that you've also been quite blessed with what's going on before. We're so keen and excited to hear from you. Lankwe is a very good friend of mine. We're set mates at Bowie College. A consummate gentleman, a thorough gentleman, and he's the authority on branding. He's actually written a book on branding, and he's the managing director of Nitro, which is a new generation in terms of presentation, advertising agency. One of the things about Lankwe that most endears him to me is his strong Christian ethos. To know Lankwe is to know a Christian gentleman. He's also a pastor in our mission, and he's one of the proteges of the great and good Dr. Christopher Kolade out of the Cadbury stable. They don't come more cooked and more seasoned than Lankwe. So Lankwe, they're going to run a video introducing you, and please take it away. You're most welcome to Pathfinders, and we look forward to an amazing time and the questions and answers that would follow. Thank you.
Thank you, P.Y.O.
Mr. Lankwe Omoyele is a respected business leader and mentor in the marketing and advertising industry of sub-Saharan Africa. He is currently managing director at Nitro 121, one of West Africa's leading marketing communications companies, and founding partner, the Lucent Consulting Company, a business strategy and human capital development consultancy. He has previously been managing director, Nielsen West Africa, Africa Marketing Director, GSK Consumer Healthcare, Marketing Director, Nutrisema, Marketing Director, Airtel Nigeria, and Marketing Director, Cadbury East and Central Africa. In 2018, he was listed amongst the 50 most influential marketing communication practitioners in Nigeria by Brand Campaign magazine and 100 most influential global marketing leaders by the World Marketing Congress. He serves on the board of several companies and not-for-profit organizations and is an adjunct faculty member of the Orange Academy and Pan-Atlantic University, Lagos, Nigeria, where he teaches marketing strategy. Lampe is a pastor in the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Olive Tree Parish, Banana Island, Ikoyi, Lagos Province 48, where he is the head of planning and communication directorate and minister overseeing the province music ministry. He is married to Adeto Kumbo with children. Ladies and gentlemen, with Jesus' joy, let's make welcome Pastor Lankwe Omoyele.
Thank you very much, P.Y.O. And good day to everyone. Just to cover wherever anyone is from across the globe, thank you for inviting me to share a few thoughts. I'll just quickly share the slides that I will speak to. Great. Just I confirm that you can see the slides that I shall be speaking to. Fantastic. All right. Thank you. So thank you, P.Y.O., and thank you, everyone. Trinity Chapel, Pathfinders, for inviting me. It's good to be here. It was also good to listen to Leko Alder speak before me. And I was saying to P.Y.O. When I saw that Leko and I were speaking that this probably be an overdose. But hopefully it's an overdose that does every one of us well. And it was also great listening to Leke. And let me also say a fun fact that Leke and I attended two secondary schools, same secondary schools for O-levels and A-levels, and 1 year apart. And hopefully the water that Leke drank, I also drank. Okay, so I'm going to be sharing about branding and social media from the business perspective. Some of what Leke has shared already, I will reinforce, but my focus is going to be a bit narrower in terms of focusing around social media and practical strategies to build a brand on social media, as we have already spoken to. Some of the things that I would say also, builds on what Leke has already spoken about. So let's just call it reinforcement of the points. On the slide, I've put the hashtag "Let Your Light Shine," and that really is premised on the scripture. And I'll just, if you will permit me, to read the scripture from Matthew chapter 5, 14 to 16 to provide the context, especially around branding, because many times when we talk about branding, people are concerned that does it mean I'm bragging about myself? Does it mean that I'm boosting my ego? But not necessarily. It's about how you go about the branding process. You know, the scripture says in Matthew 5, 14, 16, Jesus says, "You are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hidden." It says, "Nor do they light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a lampstand, and it gives light to all who are in the house." And then verse 16 says, "Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven." So when we speak about branding, it's about sharing our light, the light that you have. And it could be from a business perspective, it could be from a personal perspective. But the key thing is that you're shining your light. And so just to provide some additional context, I'm just going to try and put this on slideshow. Just give me a minute. All right. So what is branding? I know that Leke had shared that he wasn't going to provide too many definitions, but let me just provide this. So just to put in context what Leke had shared already. And I think it's important for us as we seek to see how we build brands. So I have this definition that says that a brand is an entity with a distinct identity. And it's a means of differentiation. And that's really a point that we should note, that whether it's our businesses, whether it's our personal brands, that the branding process helps us to differentiate ourselves. Here I have the depiction of a bottle of water. It's water, but you don't know what brand it is because it doesn't have a label, it's nondescript. But then the minute that you put a label, Nestle Pure Life, onto it, the Nestle brand conjures an imagery of quality, of a certain reputation. And if you see this too on the shelf, you're more likely to want to pick up the Nestle brand because it speaks to quality. There's a certain reputation, a perception that is created in your mind. Similar example, you see an unbranded cup of coffee and a branded cup of coffee, Starbucks, and you put a price on it. The likelihood is that you will seek to go for the branded one because it speaks to a bit around quality, reputation. And that's the strength of the branding process and the strength of creating a brand. And it's a composite. A brand is a composite of experiences. It's about values. It's about associations. It's linked to a product, a person, a place, organization. I always like to give the example that if I did this, if anyone can just tell me what comes to your mind if I did this. A tick. What comes to your mind? Anyone? Nike comes to your mind. All right. Thank you. Because Nike has created that in the minds over time. And therefore, you don't need to see the word Nike. You just see the tick, the swoosh, and your mind goes there. And so that's part of what's really important about creating a brand. And so for your businesses, whether it's a small business, a growing business, a multinational business, your personal brand, what are those values, those experiences, that brand identity, those associations, expectations that people have of you, all right? And it's both tangible and intangible. It's functional and emotional. A Coca-Cola will claim that it refreshes, but really, is Coca-Cola truly more refreshing than Pepsi Coca-Cola? It's what is created in the minds of people. So when you're building a brand, when you're thinking about the brand, and when you're playing on social media, it's about what impressions, perceptions are you creating, all right? And those perceptions are called positioning, but it's about the space you occupy in the mind of the defined target market. So I'm going to build again on what you've already heard. It's about defining your target market and creating the perception in the minds of the defined target market. And what you're trying to do is build equity in the minds. It's all about the mind. Branding is about what you can do in the minds of the target market. And what you're trying to do is create brand equity. You're trying to get people to see the value that your brand, your business, or your person brings to the table. So when you think about equity, for those who are in finance and play in the stock market, you talk about equities. So where the share price of company A versus company B is relative. All right. So it's about relativity. What you want to do is position your brand and your business to be seen as offering better value than the other players. And so whether we like it or not, in the business context, there is competition. Even in the personal context, there is competition. I always like to give an example that if you happen to be in the entertainment business or you compare, the choice of you as a compare versus somebody else is dependent on the perceptions that are existing in the marketplace about yourself. It's about what you command in terms of fees is about the equity that you have in the minds of the potential customers. And the brand building process is how you create a strong perception, a positive perception, a strong brand equity in the marketplace, in the minds of customers or potential customers that you want to call as prospects. So brand equity is big. And BMW says that what you make people feel is just as important as what you make or what you serve them with. And so the branding process is both tangible and intangible. It's functional and emotional. And what are the key drivers of brand equity? I always like to speak to this slide because it just puts it nicely together, and you can think about it for your businesses and your persons. So key drivers of brand equity is brand awareness and salience. Salience meaning knowledge. If your business is not known, if your person and the attributes that you have are not known, then you haven't begun the journey of brand building. And thankfully, in today's world, we have social media and digital marketing that has democratized ways of generating awareness. And that's this good that social media has brought to businesses and people. So you have to drive awareness. So a key driver of brand equity is driving awareness. I always like to say that there are certain levels of awareness. There's zero awareness when the brand is not known, the business is not known. But there's also a level of prompted awareness, which means that the business may not be known generally, but if I say to people, mention business brands of toothpaste that are known, and you mention Colgate, Aquafresh, those are unprompted awareness. But if I then come to you and ask, oh, have you ever heard of Dental Clean? And you say, oh, yes, I heard of Dental Clean. That is prompted awareness. But Aquafresh and Colgate have a stronger level of awareness than Dental Clean. Where you want your business or what you offer as a person to get to is unprompted awareness. But it's a journey. And then there's even a stronger level of awareness to be, and that's top of mind, where when you ask for brands of toothpaste, the first 2-3 brands that come to the mind of the customer, your brand is mentioned. That's top of mind. And why is this important? Because when people go to shop, the brands that are top of mind are highest in their purchase consideration. And therefore, what you want is in your line of business, you want your brand to be high up in purchase consideration. But it is a journey. So a key driver of brand equity is brand awareness and salience. And then there's perceived quality. Lakey make the good point is that should be guaranteed. But we do know that it's not always guaranteed. And therefore, you want to be able to create the perception of quality that you bring to the table, especially if you're a new business, a growing business. And then there's brand identity, those component parts that make up your brand. So the swoosh of Nike. Okay, I always like to tell a joke. It's a joke, but it's serious. In that I, as a personal brand, as a brand, there's a certain distinction that I have that when I'm being described, people will generally always mention, right? So maybe put you test. PYO, which one do you think it is? Just a pause, since you probably are the one that knows me most on the platform. So
sorry, give me that question again.
So I'm saying that in terms of brand identity, when people think about the Lanque Omele brand, what are one or two things that you would associate with Lanque Omele as a brand?
The book on branding.
Okay, well, yes, aside from that.
The advertising
Okay, what else?
entity.
What features on my person? What features on my person?
Oh, a very cerebral, very very intellectual and high on integrity.
Okay, so great. Thanks for those kind words, right? I hope I agree with you. But there's one that comes is about the voice. All right. So there's a certain brand identity.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Broadcaster. Okay.
Okay. So it's about what do you have as a brand, both for your business and your person, that is kind of associated with you, and therefore you can build on as you go. And as you then build on this, then you have a brand level of brand loyalty. The stronger the brand loyalty is to your brand, the stronger the opportunity for your brand and your business to grow. So those are key drivers. I won't go through this. Leke already spoke about the importance of having a strong brand. So you have strength, competitive advantage, positive perception, greater loyalty, a higher potential to increase market share, greater opportunity to make money. So I think Leke already spoke to that already. Okay. So why do it's important to build your personal business brand? So it's about perception and creating differentiation. I would like us to please note the issue that branding is about differentiation. It's really important. All right. In today's world, there's a lot of talk about faking it until you make it. I think that branding is not about faking it. Branding is about being true, being authentic, and I'll speak a bit more to that. All right, building on what Leke has already shared, and understand that in business and in fact in career, before people can invest in you, they need to believe in you. And therefore, that's where the issues around authenticity comes into play. And please also realize that building brand equity takes time. Building brand equity takes time. So even if today you're not so much of a strong brand, there's a journey. And therefore, you can begin to build your brand today. So let's now deep dive into branding in a digital world. Right before today, branding was mostly around the traditional media, television, radio, out of home, print magazine. But today it's democratized. The digital world has made it a lot easier to brand. And it's not just about the telephone, your laptops and devices. The digital world is about a global community. It's about people and content. So when you're talking about branding digital world, think about people and content. I'll repeat that. It's about people and content in building the brand in your business or your personal brand. And there's a plethora of platforms: Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp, X, formerly known as Twitter, all right? Snapchat, LinkedIn, YouTube. It's a whole plethora. The big challenge is because there's a plethora of platforms, there's fragmentation, and therefore it's about knowing which one to use, which one is relevant to help achieve your business and personal branding objectives. So today, people are much more connected than ever before. There's a lot of engagement with content and brands because of the proliferation I've spoken to. But social media is a paramount channel of engagement for people and businesses. And innovation, therefore, is key. It's driven by technology, a need to be customer-centric, or better still, people-centric, and then also about personalization. Today's world, even though it might be a mass market, the 8 billion people, the digital world has enabled personalization. And that's important for us if we're going to be building our business brands, building our personal brands. How do you make people that you're engaged with feel special and feel that you're truly engaging with them? So 8 key trends for us to note, some of which Leke already has spoken to. So 1 is about optimizing content and looking at personalization in terms of targeting. 2, branding using micro influencers. And I'm going to speak to the utilization of influencers. So using communities, looking at tribes via micro-influencers. The utilization of AI, again, as already been said, many tools around AI that can also help with prediction, right? Using data based on consumer experience and touch points, because that's really important in growing your businesses. And I think for smaller businesses, growing businesses, that's really important because it helps to cut out wastage. There's also how you can utilize digital experiential. Back in the day, experiential had to be about physical contact. But today, while physical contact is important, there can also be virtual contact. So there are tools around virtual reality and augmented reality that can enable you engage with people, with customers. Then the rise of mobile. You need to be mobile enabled. Your websites, if you have websites, need to be mobile enabled, right? In today's world, a lot of communication is on mobile, both video, audio. So the rise of mobile, you need to take that into cognizance. And then convenience and agility is key. Those who are going to win in the marketplace today are those who are agile. First mover advantage is a thing. And so that's important. And then the voice marketing with Siri and co, those tools are available for us to use. And then video content is big. Video content is big. There's research that says that you can generate a lot more views and followership and conversion if you're using live videos in terms of engagement. So there's increasing use of entertaining video content. So how do you utilize video for your businesses and in terms of building your brand? Okay, using a personal example, I am quite active on some of the platforms, LinkedIn and Instagram, Facebook. And I find that each time I use video as content, the viewership, the engagement levels are a lot more, probably times 5, times 10, as opposed to when I just use posts and just still short photographs. So video is a big tool to consider. So that's the key trends, branding tools that we need to take in cognizance as we play in the digital world. So I'm going to now deep dive further to some strategies for building a brand on social media. So I'm going to speak a lot more specific around social media. There's a lot more we can speak about if we're going on other platforms, but I'll just narrow it to social media. So first is you need to develop your STP strategy, your segmentation, targeting, and positioning strategy. I always like to speak about this. So whether it's about social media, whether it's about your business, a lot of business owners, when I ask them questions about who's your target market, they say everybody. But I say that, look, that's the beginning recipe of failure. You need to be clear about who your Pareto is. I believe a lot in the Pareto principle. In that a smaller minority, 20%, could be 25%, could be 30%, accounts for 70 to 80% of your business. And when I say business, it could even be the church. The church itself needs to be clear on who your core is. And that's why we have different expressions of churches, because one church, one parish cannot address all the needs. You need to have a Pareto. You need to have a Pareto. And that's not to say you don't have a secondary target, but it just says that there's a core that you need to put a lot more of your resources on. So from a business owner perspective, you need to identify who your core is. Who is your 70 to 80%, who is your 20 to 30% that will generate 70 to 80% of your revenues and your business. All right. And then you divide that up and focus on that core target. And then also determine how you want to be perceived, how you want to be seen by that target market. So first step in your social media platform is define who your primary target is. For example, if your target market is Gen Zs, right, age about 18 to 24, then you shouldn't bother about trying to engage on Facebook because they are not there. You need to be considering Instagram or Snapchat or TikTok. That's why it's important to clarify your segmentation, your targeting and positioning strategy for your businesses. Even if it's your personal brand, you need to clarify that so that you don't waste resources, you don't waste energy. Again, this is a long list here of why it's important to segment. I won't spend too much time on this, but it helps focus. It helps you to target appropriately. It also then helps in terms of your omni-channel strategy impact, knowing which channels to focus on, knowing which social media platforms to focus on. Okay. It helps to build customer loyalty. It helps to focus business focus, and therefore also helps to tailor your strategy, your social media strategies, to customer segments that will generate more profit growth for your business. So what are some of the steps in market segmentation? Identify the segmentation variables, the demography, the geographic, the location, the socioeconomic, the behavior, the psychographic, and the socioeconomic, right? And it's important to do that. And once you've done that, then develop the profiles and then evaluate where your Pareto, your focus will be. Now, I always like to say that geography is not enough. The fact that a person lives in London or Lagos is not enough. You need to determine their psychography. You need to determine their socioeconomic. Their psychography has to do with their lifestyle, their aspirations. I always like to give an example of myself. You know, growing up, right, I had a certain level of upbringing that was, call it typical Nigerian middle class at the time, upper middle class perhaps, okay, lived in Ikoyi and Victoria Island. But by the time I started working, right, my economic circumstances did not allow me to rent a house in Ikoyi or VI. But my mindset was still Ikoyi and VI. So you need to understand, anybody who was going to try and sell a house to me or get me a house to rent, you need to understand that mindset and not judge me alone by my prevailing economic circumstances. And so for us, from a business owner perspective, we need to understand that people are not just about their location, not just about their demography, there's also their aspirations in addressing their needs and wants. And I have a classic example here. Two people that I'm sure most of us on the platform will be familiar with. There is Prince Charles, male, born in 1948, raised in the UK, married twice, lives in a castle, wealthy and famous. There's Ozzy Osbourne, male, born in 1948, raised in the UK, married twice, lives in the castle, wealthy and famous. But are they the same person? Are they the same kind of person? No. And therefore, in segmentation, you need to go beyond demography, go to need states, go to psychography to truly understand who your target market is. And then you profile them so that you understand what matters to them. What are the communication channels to reach them through? What kind of content on social media would resonate with them? Okay. So that's the first point. So secondly, you want to identify your business purpose or your personal purpose. Do a SWOT analysis of your person, yourself. And I wonder if many of us, from a personal brand perspective, have done a SWOT analysis of ourselves. We tend to do it for the businesses that we run. But it's useful to do it for yourself. What are your strengths? What are your areas of growth, opportunities, weaknesses, in quotes, and the opportunities and the threats that you face? And I like to say that your brand purpose is a reflection of your greatest strengths and growth opportunities. All right, I have this diagram that I say that your purpose is at the intersection of your passions, the gifts and talents that you have, the experiences that you had over time, because no experience is lost, right? You always leverage your past experiences, and then people's needs and wants, the target market, people's needs. So there's an intersection of those, right? When you clarify that, then it helps in terms of, especially around your personal brand. But from a business brand perspective, it's about what are people's needs and wants, what are the strengths of the business, and how can the business satisfy? And so you define what your brand purpose is, whether it's a personal brand or whether it's a business brand. Define your purpose. And it's that purpose. I think earlier on somebody asked the question about the why. It's that why, that purpose that will drive you in terms of what you have to offer to the marketplace. Your why is really important because it's a source of motivation, especially from a personal brand perspective. And there are examples here. So Google says about satisfying every curiosity, and that's what drives Google in all the products, the services that they offer. Dulux talks about adding color to people's lives. And then yes, then paint. But it's not just about the product. Remember I said a brand is about the tangible and intangible. So they speak about adding color to people's lives. And so everything that they do is around that. It may just go beyond paint. It could be other things that they therefore enables them to come to. And then Harley Davidson, for those who are bikers, speaks about fulfilling dreams of personal freedom. Bikers feel about being liberated when they're on their bikes. And that's what Harley Davidson speaks to. So each of us for our businesses can define the brand purpose because it then guides the things that we do going forward. And then the third is about once you define your brand purpose, you can then craft your brand proposition. And this is where it speaks about authenticity, which is the overriding theme for today's conversations about authenticity. And simply put, authenticity is about how a brand genuinely represents on a consistent basis its values, its personality, and the promises. If a brand doesn't constantly live to its values, and I will speak to values shortly, and personality, then there's a challenge. That doesn't live to its promises, then there's a challenge. So at the heart of building your brand is about authenticity, being true to your values, your personality, and the promises that you keep, right? Being true to yourself and living up to your promises. And it links to your brand promise. Research has found that brands that are authentic, that live to their values, their personality, and promises will be perceived as delivering more value to customers. And their brand equity then is grown, is built. And you can then potentially make more revenue and more profit. And then your loyalty to your business and your brand is guaranteed. Okay? So speaking about differentiation, one of the questions you need to begin to ask yourselves is how are you different from other people? How are you different from other business brands? What can you bring to the table that is different? Some years ago, when Nigeria GSM, the market was still relatively new, the initial players, the MTNs and the Airtels, said that they can only go by per minute billing, right? And they stuck on that for years. Not until Glo came into the market and offered the market per second billing. So there's always a space, right? I think Leke spoke about our level of imagination, creativity is not limited. God has given us lots of creativity and imagination. The thing for us to just think about it. Where is the gap? Where is the gap in the marketplace? Where is that gap? What can you bring differently to the marketplace? What are those unique skills? Every one of us has gifts and talents. And that's when I spoke about brand purpose, I spoke about the gifts and talents that you have. What are those unique skills, the values, the passion, the personality that you can influence, that kind of business can influence, that no one else can easily offer? That's what you need to be thinking about to drive your business. And then the influence and impact that it has on the defined target audience. Okay, I like this quote that says, be a stiletto, and we're sure the ladies can identify that. Be a stiletto in a room full of flats. What's that differentiation that you can bring into the market? And tied to that is values, right? So just as Christians, most of us here are Christians. We are guided by the Bible, the scriptures. But I always say each person needs to also have a set of values that differentiate you. And it's important for business brands and personal brands to have a set of values that guide you in terms of how you live your life, how you do your business, because it really helps. It really helps. And it's part of being authentic. It's being authentic. When people see you as a business, as a brand, what do you stand for, right? What are those things that make you stand out? Okay. So we talked about a brand being a promise. It's an expectation. If a brand doesn't live up to its promise, then it can go bland. By the way, the title of the book I wrote is called Brand or Be Bland. So if you're not living up to your promises, then you're on the risk of not building a brand equity. And over time, just share a personal experience, over time, I realized what were important to me. So like I said, guided by the core of the Bible, right? But just to help me guide myself, my personal brand, I came up with a set of core values that are almost like inscribed on my forehead, which I share with people. So if I go to start a job somewhere else, I always kind of speak about the values. Why? Because I want to be stretched about it, to be challenged to live to the values. And so I come up with this acronym that says my core values are FIRES, where F is faithfulness, R is integrity, respect, excellence, and simplicity. But I always say that doesn't have to be the same for anyone else. It's about what guides you. What are you driven by? And a measure of the strength of your brand equity is if people say that you live to this, right? I mean, I've gone to places before where a new job some years ago, and I meet someone and says, I've heard a lot about you. And what I find interesting is everything I've heard about you from everybody else is the same, consistent. And I said to the person, that's a good thing. Doesn't matter whether what you've heard is good or bad. The point is there's a certain level of consistency around it. So it's about being consistent, and I'll come to consistency as well. So what are those values that you create that people can truly say that differentiates you from others? And it's not easy. It's not always easy. I mean, I've always lived to these values. No, there are times when I fail on those values. The key thing is because I have them up in my head. Each time I failed, I quickly course correct. And I think that's the thing about strong brands. The best of brands, Apple, Coca-Cola, occasionally would fail. But the key thing is they course correct quickly. So again, when you do fail, do not overbeat yourself. Accept the errors, mistakes, and then course correct and keep rebuilding and reinventing as brands. And I know speaking to someone, there are times maybe just feel, look, I failed. How am I going to get up again? But the Bible also tells us the righteous man falls 7 times, but gets back up each time. All right. So, and this diagram is, if I wanted to put us to test, it's actually from the scripture. Any takers? This diagram is from the scripture. Any takers? It's actually a scripture. Any takers?
Can two work together if they agree?
Well, not exactly, but that's the great thing about perception. But that's not it, actually. But thank you for the attempt. It actually says that the righteous are bold as a lion. And that's the inspiration for this. All right. But the point is, if you're going to live true to values, if you're going to build a brand, you need to be bold. You need to be bold. So the thing is about the next point is about defining your brand voice, right? It's about tonality and language. So if you're going to build a strong brand on social media, having defined your personality or values, be consistent, right? I would like for people to, if you see Coca-Cola, hearing Coca-Cola ad, before even hearing the name, you can shut your eyes. You can almost say, oh, that's a Coca-Cola. You can almost say that's an Apple brand. So you want to be able to say, oh, look, before I hear PIOs speak, I want to be able to say this is the tone of voice. All right. I mean, when I recall during his birthday, there was some that said PIO says, and there are certain words that was right. I think one of the words was what? What's incredible? Anyway, some words that come to play. All right. And when I turned, sorry.
Phenomenal was the word.
Exactly, that was the word. Phenomenal, right? So what's the tone? What's the language, right? I in church, right? When I turned 60 last year, and the choir, because choir is part of my ministry, they came together and did something like that, and they came up with a song that I tend to always sing before I speak or do anything, right? So what are those tones, language that can be associated with it that reflects your personality and values? So on social media, you want to define that to be clear on how I speak. And then the 6th point is value adding content strategy. And this is really the heart. These are the heart of developing your content plan. It cannot, building a brand or a strong brand, it cannot be inadvertent. And by the way, let me say this, whether you do anything or not, you are building a brand. People will have perceptions about you. So it's better to be deliberate about the things so that the perceptions that are there out in the marketplace about your brand is what you would like it to be. So you need to be deliberate and have a content strategy for your business brand, if that's your focus, or for your personal brand, if that's your focus, or for both. So you need to have a content plan that is a mix of education. I like the word edutainment, right? That's what my preference is both educational and entertaining, right? So you want to share valuable and relevant content, whether it's from a business brand perspective or from your personal brand. So how do you position your brand or yourself as a position as a thought leader in the industry that you play in, right? I've given an example, just a rough example of one that we use in my office at Nitro. All right, this was around week 1. So you say to yourself, week 1, this is what I want to post on a Monday. on a Friday, this is what I would like to post. So you have a draft. It could be rough, right? I'm a bit active, like I said, on Instagram, and I'm kind of flexible, but I have a kind of a sense of what I want to post week after week. Okay, it doesn't have to be as rigid as this. But if you're a business brand, I would suggest that yes, you really want to have a content calendar that at least gives you a plan, either on a weekly basis or on a monthly basis. Some businesses actually have as much as quarterly basis, which they then refine and change. From a church perspective, you want to also have some kind of plan, or what kind of plan do you want to have over time. It doesn't mean that you're sticking to it rigidly, but this gives you a kind of guide. Okay, this is an example: Valentine's week, week 2, and even have the themes. So slide 1, for example, says the boot up one. Slide 2, the one with many suitors. So it kind of gives a guide that you can plan towards. All right. And then be consistent in your visuals, and I speak this particularly for business brands. You want your visuals, the look and feel of your platforms, IG, TikTok, LinkedIn, to have a certain consistency, all right, on your slide. So be conscious about visual branding. And then engage with your target audience. Respond to comments, messages. Don't just post and go away. I think Leke mentioned that after a post, it then comes back to engage. You need to engage. And this interestingly, when I thought this is, it might seem, I'm sure Leke is not around, but it's a bit cheeky on my part. But some days ago, I posted about this session. All right, I put out this session, and Mrs. Alder comes into my post and makes the comments. Okay, and I engage with her. Okay, so I'm just using the example that engage with your audience. Don't just post and go away. Your posts are not sufficient. It's the engagement. So even from a church perspective, a lot of churches just post and go. You need to engage with those who are making comments. That's how you increase followers. That's how you increase in terms of conversion if you're a business brand. Engage. Don't just post and go. Engage with your audience. And then use relevant hashtags, right? Depending on what your post is about, seek for relevant hashtags that can increase the visibility of your content and attract new followers. All right. I've just used these 2 examples because they're associated with me. All right. Brand or be bland. But it depends on the post. Right. I also have a hashtag called Member of a Brand Manager, but it also depends on the post. If I'm talking about marketing, then I'll use hashtags that relate to branding, marketing, strategy. If I'm talking about politics, and occasionally I may do that, I will then look for a hashtag that's relevant, that will draw attention to that post. So use relevant hashtags, but you need to ensure that it will enhance your visibility and of your content, and therefore enable that there's a lot of sharing that can take place, right? And that leads me to the 10th point about utilize user-generated content. The best content are those that your followers are either sharing of themselves, of what you have shared, or about your brand. At times, you cannot predict how that will happen. It may just happen naturally. Someone says, you don't know what can go viral, right? My most shared content are things I didn't even realize will go viral. I started on LinkedIn actively some years ago, a series called Member of a Brand Manager, right? Which I didn't realize will get popular, right? But it has now become not just something online, it's something that I've taken also offline, and I'll speak to that as well. So it's utilize user-generated content, encourage your followers to share content that feature your brand or your business, and utilize on their own social media channels and yours as well. And also think about cross-channel utilization. Today, it's made easier by IG and Facebook being owned by the same company, but always ensure that you're able to share across platforms that are relevant. But again, remember what I said at the beginning, let it be related to the target audience. I find at times that there's some posts that I make that I put to test. I share on LinkedIn, I share on Instagram, I share on Facebook. I then find that the level of engagement is a lot higher on LinkedIn. So over time, and also let's prepare to learn, because you learn by doing. So over time, I kind of know what kind of posts resonate with different platforms. There's some posts that I will make only on LinkedIn. I will not bother about Facebook because the level of engagement will not be high. And the same also speak to some level, some posts I put on Facebook may not be as engaging to those who are on LinkedIn. So over time, as you do, you will know what works and is effective for your brand, your business brand, and your personal brand. So the key thing is to do. You get better by doing, right? So do not feel that today it's not significant. Over time, it becomes significant. And then the 11th point is about users of influencers, and it really speaks to those who are running businesses. And the point I'd like to make that we should not think about influencers as just being celebrities. I think in today's world, you're thinking about influencers being celebrities. And I speak to brand managers, especially with guys who run multinationals, and say, you're making a big error by only focusing on celebrity influencers. The fact that a celebrity has 10 million followers doesn't mean it's relevant to a business brand. It's about, simply put, the influencer that will have the greatest impact on your brand to influence people. So it might be a micro influencer. It could be a nano influencer. What you must try and determine is the relevant influencer for your business brand. And so it doesn't have to also be expensive. An influencer could be a person who has just 1,000 followers, but will actually help your conversion, your sales for your business, right? So the key thing is know the influencer that aligns with your brand values, your target audience, and the type of campaign, what your objectives are, all right? Again, I think I've made this point. Don't select influencers just because they're celebrities. A person with 1,000 may actually be more impactful for your business. Okay. If you can accommodate it to run social media ads, it helps to boost the awareness levels for your business. But again, be careful. And also, if you have social media platforms, also ensure that they're linked to your website. So in today's day and age, every business must have a website. So your social media platforms should also enable traffic to your website to generate leads for your business. Then consistency, be consistent, post regularly, guided by your content plan. Again, it's been found that a business that posts every day potentially does better than a business that posts once in a month. I'm not saying you have to post every day, but at least have some regularity in terms of the business. And then build relationships, like I said, engage with your audience. And then, this is speaking generally now, beyond social media, learn, unlearn, relearn, upskill, stay relevant, in tune with emerging trends in your industry. And then network, both online and offline. Even though we're talking about social media, I like to make the point that we shouldn't just isolate social media alone. What you do offline is important. So what I tend to do is a lot of things I do offline, I bring online. So there must be some integration between your online activities, what you're doing on social media, with your offline activities. And we've spoken about quality, we're talking about excellence. And so in our engagement on social media, in our businesses, in our personal lives, we need to just keep cultivating and showcasing excellence, right? One of my favorite scriptures is from Proverbs 22:29, right? It's about, do you see a person who excels in his work? He will stand before kings, he will not stand before unknown men. So the branding process enables us to stand out. It enables us to let our light shine. That's what the branding process is about. So be credible, right? Be credible. Leke spoke about this. You cannot make a promise and not fulfill that promise. This speaks to the tailors, but it's every one of us as brands, as businesses. We must live up to our promises. We cannot get the point where people order services or products from us and we don't fulfill it. No matter how much you do from a communication perspective, if you're not living up to your promise, then you would fail on the long run. So branding is not about whitewashing. Branding is about making promises and living up to those promises. And when you're consistent in living up to those promises, you can then show your light out because people then believe. And when people believe, your reputation is built, and then they will refer your business, your person to others. And that's how business grows. And then the 15th and final point, in terms of strategies to building your brand on social media, is track your social media metrics. Understand what's working. I spoke to that earlier on. Over time, I get to know what's working on different platforms. And so you can adjust your strategy, adjust appropriately, especially if you are spending money on social media ads. You need to monitor, are you getting traction or not? what is working for you, what is not working, what do you need to modify. Okay, so those are 15 key strategies I thought would be useful to share in terms of building your brand on social media. There are some case studies. I'll just take this in five minutes as I wrap up to just put it all together. So I put this up deliberately. These are personal brands. And because of PYO is why I put Saka in national jerseys, the national jersey up, right? But this 5 people are strong and their personal brands are strong, but they're also strong in terms of engagement on social media. So probably you want to just look at some of the things that they do on social media, right? Chimamanda, Nathaniel Bassey, Ibukwa Woshika, Funke Akindele, on social media, they engage with their, so there's just examples. And the question mark there is you as a person, you as a personal brand, right? But beyond personal brands, there's, some of us probably follow Femi Lazarus, right? What does he do? You might say he came out of nowhere, but it is a deliberate effort on social media, okay? Consistently shares messages, right? That teach, that inspire, right? About leadership from biblical insights, relationships, personal growth. And what's the execution? Short clips from sermons, right? Divisional thoughts and text graphics. So very short clips, and that's what just helps, right? But its tonality is warm. Remember, I talked about identify your brand tone. Tonality is warm. It's relatable, okay? It's a mix of spirituality and simplicity, and just share snippets, okay? And then the snippets, it cuts across Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And what it does, what his team does, is they tailor the content to fit each platform. Part of segmentation is that one size cannot fit all. So he tailors content to fit each platform. So like I said to yours, in my own personal experience, I tailor my post to different platforms based on what I've learned about the audience on each of those platforms. And then he shares is authentic. He shares his struggles, is authentic, right? And then he's building a community. He replies to comments, acknowledges followers, and speaks to people, not at them. Okay? An example of what I've already spoken about. And then there's Jay Shetty, all right? He has a consistent brand identity. The modern mock, he uses videos, captions, visuals, again, uses short videos. But he's consistent in terms of what he posts, and the algorithm helps him. I know something about the algorithm is that the more people engage with you, the more that you will likely come up in their feed. That's how algorithms work, right? So you want to ensure that people are engaging with you, are engaging with people. And then he has also done some collaboration. One of the strengths, building a strong brand, don't try to necessarily do it all on your own. Collaborate with voices. At times, it means going to collaborate with a voice that maybe at this point in time has a stronger brand equity. Do not be shy. Do not be ashamed to collaborate with those that can help build your brand. So you're borrowing credibility. You're borrowing a cross audience that helps to build your brand. And then those of us in the UK might know Mama Dia, right? She's healthcare. But beyond what she does in the clinical space, she's creating content that is rooted in Nigerian motherhood, is relatable to the target audience. What she has done is build emotional connection and trust. And audience see her as one of us. She's not just a celebrity influencer. She's as one of us in terms of our tonality, her voice. And then Ashwebi Bella, going to a business brand, a lot of it is generated by user-generated content. So they're not just talking about themselves. It's their followers that talk a lot about Ashwebi Bella itself when they are wedding events, and it becomes viral. And then what they've done is build a community, right? Again, back to this issue of not necessarily trying to address everyone, right? They focus on those who are keen on weddings, fashion lovers, and those who are involved in the fashion space. And part of the hashtags that they use, hashtag Ashwebi Bella, hashtag Bella Nigeria Weddings. Those are important hashtags that they use. And they're also tagging. Tagging is also a way to drive followership. So they tag designers, makeup artists, and relevant influencers. And then that's just to show you what their page is like, 2.7 million followers. All right, Fenty Beauty, again, just another case study to share. Does similar things that the previous case studies have focused on. All right, it's founded by Rihanna, but not focused on Rihanna. Right, they look at content that cuts across Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Right, they use influencers, but they also do quite a bit of PR. Right, so these are case studies that just hopefully ties up on what we can do to learn to build brands on social media. On that note, I'll say thank you and let your light shine.
Oh, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Thank you, Pastor Lampe. That was really, truly incisive. It was a journey at 100 miles per hour. We took a lot of notes and it's very comprehensive. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was beneficial and was a very nice balance between yourself and what Leke had shared earlier. And you have now taken us to that next level of the specific steps codified that we must follow. Thank you so much, Lankwe. We will make room for some questions. If there are any questions you have, please post them in the chat window. So we can take them while we have Lankwe with us. Brand awareness. Someone's just asked, is it possible to get the slides?
Yeah, we can work that out. Yeah.
Now, if you didn't register, if you came in directly via the Zoom link, then you will have to get in touch with the team. If we can post the Pathfinders contact email at CC, please, the organizers, so people know how to reach out to us to request that. Thank you for breaking down for us what's interesting, Lankwe, is how the social media is agnostic. Anyone can start from anywhere they're at, and you don't necessarily, unlike in print media, where you need to be coming with some face or name recognition. With social media, it's just simply your content and the regularity of it and the poignancy of it and consistency of it. That's something that is very interesting. So there are no barriers, isn't it? What would you say to that? No barriers starting?
No barriers. And I think that it's been helped by the fact that social media is democratized. So every one of us, you don't pay to set up an IG page. It's only when you want some extra features. So it's free. So there's absolutely no barrier. And that's in fact what's making it tough for a lot of set up brand building organizations, because one person can just set up in a corner somewhere.
I mean, it's good to see that Africans are taking advantage of this most profoundly, or shall I say, minority races, and people are pushing their content from everywhere. But how do you, if you were to speak, Lankwe, to the fact that the space is so overcrowded? I mean, my personal experience, I sometimes struggle with the fact that you just have to keep putting something out there. So, for instance, I put on my message titles every Sunday. I try and post a few commentaries on location. But it's such a massive space that you're not really sure how much impact you're making. What would you say to that?
You know, Ecclesiastic, I think it's about maybe chapter 7, that sort of cast your waters here, cast it here, cast it there. Yes, right? You don't know which one will be. So I think first thing is keep doing it, right? By the way, I mean, let me use this current example. I'm sure all of us are following that the latest song hit is Gaze Baba and Lawrence Oyo, No Turning Back version 2. But how many people know that Gaze Baba has been casting his bread for years and years, right? And this just suddenly turns up. So I think in terms of brand building, you just have to keep at it, consistency, right? You may not know when it will happen, the tipping point will happen, but you must keep at it. The key thing as well, while keeping at it, is also keep on looking at your source of differentiation. I always say that there's no one, God is so wonderful. 8 billion of us, there's no twin, no two are exactly the same. Our experiences are different. Even if we went to the same school, right, in the same class, our experiences are different. So bring your own experiences, tell your stories from your own experiences, and create that kind of differentiation. And again, it's also about your target market. You may not address the 8 billion people in the world. It might just be this 10,000 people that a person is quote unquote called to, in quotes. But they are the ones that then you make a difference in their lives. So I think it's about consistency and just keeping at it and seeing how you can bring some differentiation to play when you speak. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like us to also speak. We often focus more in Pathfinders on those who are entrepreneurs, and they form a significant chunk of our community, and many of them are already in business. But there's also intrapreneurs, people who are in employment, and there isn't enough consciousness of the fact that that is also a business expression, and that promotion today, rising in the career today, is about your branding. You're no different from the next guy in terms of output, but how can some of these principles be applied by people in employment to understand how they can especially put themselves in the face of their decision makers?
Yeah. Look, my career has been mostly as an entrepreneur. All right. Just in recent years that gone to full entrepreneurship, right? And it's in part, it's always I'm still an entrepreneur in some ways. So and that's why, again, it's part of the reason why I wrote the book around personal branding, because I think that personal branding is such a big thing because it can help you differentiate yourself. And I think it's important from a career perspective that we're doing a SWOT analysis ourselves. What are the strengths that we have? And how do we leverage our strengths? So you need to identify what your strengths are and shine your light and not hide your light under a bushel, right? And the thing is, it's not about ego driving. It's about just showing what you have to offer. One, excellence, obviously you must be excellent, but then you must also project that excellence, right? I found sometime in my career, that one of my strengths, again, I spoke to it as like a joke, but it was clear that one of my strengths was what I was giving as in my voice, right? Absolutely nothing to do with me. It was God just decided that, I always say that a joke, that God is a fair God. He had probably knew that I was going to be, for those who don't know me, I'm actually slim, right? I'm slim. So God knew that this my child is going to be slim, right? So, hey, I'm a fair God. So I'm going to give him a big voice to compensate for his slim stature, right? So I recognized that early. And I recognized that therefore I could build on it in terms of presentations. Because my career happened to be in marketing, I therefore leveraged it. So every opportunity I had to present, I would take it on because it was my strength, and it was a source of differentiation. So every one of us in career must look for, apart from, yes, you must be excellent in your job, deliver on your results, but then where everybody else is delivering on the results, you must seek for where is my strength and how do I leverage on that strength, and project yourself with humility and live to values that can help you build differentiation in the workplace.
So the key is differentiation. And some may be natural gifting, some may be in skill, or everybody must know that differentiating factor, your USP, and emphasize it.
Yeah. Somebody said, somebody read the book and actually brought in a definition. I think it was actually my daughter. She came up with a definition that it's about personality, skills, and values. Personality, skills, and values is the equation to building your personal brand differentiation, especially in the workplace.
Yes, and one of them is not one. All of them are important. You can't get by without the panoply of all three of them.
Yes.
Personality, skills, and values. Thank you. There are two questions. What's the best way to separate your business brand from your personal brand, especially if you are the face of your business and are still interested in growing a unique personal brand?
Excellent question. I get this question all the time. All right, so your brand must have its logo, its look and feel, what the business brand does. That's important, right? So you must let that business brand also have its own legs to run, whether or not you are there. So let the business brand also run on its own. So it must be excellent. It must have its own means of differentiation. It must deliver excellent service on those lines. It must have its own brand identity. So let that business brand run. However, you also have your personal brand that you associate with your business brand. And therefore, position yourself as a thought leader, right? And doesn't mean you can also not engage on an informal basis, but then you're creating an association with your business brand. So everybody knows that you run that business, but you're running your own business brand. So let me use myself as a case study. So I happen to be managing director of Nitro 121. Everybody knows that. So on the way I appear on LinkedIn might be different from Instagram. So you must also define each of the platform of where you are and how you are, right? You don't have to be the same expression, right? I use the word, you don't have the same expression on every platform. So on LinkedIn, I'm the hardcore professional. I'm speaking about marketing, business, and almost everything I speak about, even when I use Arsenal's 40 touches to score a goal, I link it to teamwork and things along those lines, right? So even if it's on a lighthearted note, I still link it to professional. So I'm building thought leadership on that platform. It can be lighthearted, but I'm building thought leadership on LinkedIn. How I express myself on Instagram may be a bit toned down, because I found that when I bring in some LinkedIn post to Instagram, people just probably think it's too serious. They don't relate. Okay, so on Instagram, I'm a bit toned down and share a bit more personal things on Instagram. On Facebook, I'm a bit more, slightly bit more political on Facebook in some of the expressions that there. So you can build your business brand, but then everybody does associates your personal brand still with your business brand, but not necessarily talking all the time about your business brands. So I don't always talk about Nitro 121 on Instagram or LinkedIn. Occasionally I would, right? But I'm driven by building the personal brand, like primarily, but then there's an association with Nitro as may be required.
Sounds good. Excellent. And there's another one. What would you recommend as an ideal frequency for a brand to post on social media? You mentioned we should be consistent and post regularly, but you're also squeezing that you're not asking us to post every day. So not consistent
Okay,
is
right.
consistent.
I think, again, for a business brand, I don't know if I can call them an ideal, but I think a business brand, if I don't give some guidance, a business brand should post about minimum twice a week. A business brand, minimum, right? If you can do 3, that's great. Because you're also putting pressure on yourself. You also don't want to post for the sake of posting. You want to ensure that what you're posting makes meaning, it's engaging, you're offering some information or awareness, it's making meaning to your business. But I would encourage, if you can post twice a week, that's great, all right? From a personal brand perspective, I would encourage post once a week at the minimum from a personal brand perspective. I think over time, without having legislated for myself, I probably tend to post at least once a week. And somehow it has grown followership over time without even a deliberate effort so to do. So guidance-wise, business brand, I'll say try and post minimum twice a week. Personal brand, try and post at least once a week. But the key focus is that you're posting meaningful, what I like to call edutaining material. And then also the other point is vary what you post. Don't just post still photos or just graphics. Try and intersperse what you post, have video content at times, try and have motion graphics. So create variety in what you post.
Yeah. And the music background helps a lot as well.
Yes, it also helps.
Using music
Yeah.
to make it interactive and engaging.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Those are the questions I have seen come through. I don't think there's any one of the previous questions that we would like your take on. Having a very quick look. This as someone who's still in the advertising space, and you have all this challenge and contention from the democratization of digital media. How has that impacted the practice of advertising?
So it has a huge impact. So obviously, the fragmentation has therefore led to costs. You know, when you think about the forces of competition that Michael Porter speaks about, the buyer, the propensity of the buyer to force prices down. So that's happening in industry. So the profitability is there's a pressure on profitability of companies, and therefore that's an area that we are finding challenges. So we keep on trying to navigate that aspect. But what we then try to do is try and look for what therefore is our means of differentiation, right? When the market is fragmented, then it increases the need for differentiation. And therefore, one of the things I keep on saying to people is that and it's even worse now with AI, right? So I try and say that there's certain things that AI cannot fully help us do as humans right now. So tap into that. Culture, for example, culture is an area, right? I can speak to the culture. I'm not saying culture, I'm not just talking about tradition, talking about the way of life, the behavior of the consumer, of the target market. So that's a source that I can seek to create a competitive advantage for. Then tied to that is about strategy, okay? Deep strategy. And I think that Leke spoke to that. It's not just about the fact that you can develop a logo or colors. It's about speaking to strategy. And that speaks to understanding really the consumer, understand the consumer. Let me give you an example I always like to give. I lived in Kenya for a few years, and Malta Guinness had tried to launch out from Nigeria to Kenya and had not succeeded. I got the insight why it hadn't succeeded, because my first week in Kenya, when I went to a restaurant with some of my colleagues, my Kenyan colleagues, in the restaurant, the waiter comes to me and says, I should order for drinks. So I asked for a malt drink, right? And he brings an alcoholic drink to me. And I said, no, I asked for a malt drink. He said, yeah, but this is malt, right? I then had an understanding that as far as Kenyans were concerned, malt is alcoholic in Kenya. And the biggest brand in East Africa is called Tosca Malt. The biggest lager beer is called Tosca Malt. Well, here I was coming from Nigeria, where malt is non-alcoholic. So Malta Guinness didn't succeed, no matter how much of marketing investment they put in place, because the Kenyan consumer could not relate with a non-alcoholic malt drink, especially one that had the brand name called Guinness.
Guinness.
Right. So it's about understanding culture deeply. And so that's where we try to create a differentiation, show that we understand culture, we understand strategy better than somebody who is just using AI to develop advertising.
Excellent. No, excellent. And I think that's important to entrepreneurs here. At some point, you do need custom designed marketing strategy for you. And there's a limit to how far you can go with just postings on social media. You do at some point need someone to give you a coherent strategy that touches the 4 P's: your price, your product, the place, and the promotion of your product. Excellent. I mean, there was a question, but I think we couldn't call it a wrap. The question was about the scarce mention of Twitter. Is the platform not right for business branding?
I think I can answer that quickly. It's not the best for business branding. It's a chaotic marketplace. Not that it's not relevant, all right? I mean, Nitro advertises there, but it's if I was going to route again, it's back to who your core target market is, and what's the product. So let me rephrase that. It's about who your target market is and what product or services that you're offering. Perhaps if you're in the real estate business, then maybe some Twitter could be useful in some regards. But you just need to define what industry you're playing, who your target audience is. There's a lot of noise on Twitter, so you need to be careful that your advertising, your branding, your business brand is not lost in the noise. Right.
Excellent. Our time is up, but I'd like to give one last opportunity to this question. If you can just answer it very briefly. And it is, which I think you've spoken to, or maybe a one-line sentence on each one. What is the link between branding, marketing, and advertising?
Okay. I am pretty old school and have some firm views about this. Why? Because online there's still a lot of debates that marketing is different from branding and advertising and things like that. So let me give you my point of view here, which I'm pretty regimented about. Branding and advertising are a subset of marketing. Marketing, classically, is composed of the marketing mix. You have the marketing mix of the product or service, you have the pricing, you have the place, which has to do with your distribution, and then you have your promotional mix. It's your promotional mix is where advertising is a part of. So under the promotional mix, there's advertising, there's digital marketing, there's PR, guerrilla marketing, and many others. Now, branding is not just about the promotional mix. You build a brand by advertising, you build a brand by PR, but you also build a brand by your pricing strategy. Your brand is also built even by your distribution and place strategy. I can build a brand merely by being available in supermarkets. And because of the way I am available in terms of merchandising, my visibility helps also to build my brand. Remember, branding is about how you build perception. So anything under your marketing mix that helps you to build a perception, whether it's the product, the quality of the service that you're offering, your pricing, your distribution, and then your promotional mix, helps build your brand. So that's why I say that branding is a subset of marketing.
Excellent. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Lankwe. This has been an extremely powerful session, and the combination of the two sessions has really truly equipped people with everything. I think it should be called a master class in branding. Thank you for all the effort you put in. Just before we close, yes, I'm reminded that our next session on Pathfinders will be on AI. So someone was raising a question or a point about AI. We'll have the next session in July, which will be on AI. If you're not already registered with Pathfinders to receive our information, there's a WhatsApp group and there's an email. Please make certain to send an email asking for information so they can include you on our various handles and on social media, the Trinity Chapel home pages everywhere, just so you could become aware of the next session when the dates are fixed and it is set. And I did say to us earlier that I would encourage us to all put a seed in the ground. We're a Christian community. The vast majority of us are Christians, and we understand the place of sowing and reaping. We understand the place of a seed. Our speakers have been gracious with their time, and they've not put a charge to these sessions. But we know what the needful is that must be done, and we will be doing that on the behalf of this audience. So I would encourage us to all contribute to that. If you can put up the giving link again, if you're minded so to do, the church is going to take care of it anyway. But it is a good thing as Christians to make certain that you put a seed in the ground and God will breathe on it. Because when all of his principles have come and gone, you need the breath of God to bring to birth anything and everything. And so we encourage you to support that. Thank you so much, Lankwe, and I'll be
Thank
reaching
you.
out to you as well.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, everyone.
You're most welcome. I'm just going to share a word of prayer, and then we will bring this to a close. Father, Lord, we just want to thank you. Thank you for this wonderful time in your presence. Thank you for your sons that you have used to be a blessing. Thank you, Lord, for the message. Let your light shine. Father, we pray that in this digital age, this new season, may we continue to be shining lights. May we continue to be lampposts. May Leke and Lankwe also continue to go to new levels of expression of your glory. Father, may the church continue to carry forward the light in the 21st century. When we continue, the message remains the same, but the messenger must adapt. Teach us, O Lord. You said in your word that you teach our hands to war. Teach us, O Lord, to continue to be instruments of your good. And for everyone here, entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs alike, Father, I pray that you will breathe the breath upon everyone, that all that we have heard today, we will put it to work. We will put it to work. We will practice it, and we will receive a harvest therefrom. Thank you, Holy Spirit. As we all go, Father, let your time of refreshing come upon us, renew our strength. And when we go into our different places of worship tomorrow, Father, let there be a mighty experience, a mighty impartation by your grace. Father, we give you thanks and we bless and glory in you. Thank you for this time that we have heard. We return all the glory to you in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Amen.
Man.
Thank you so much. I understand there's a feedback link that's been put in the window. Please take a moment to click through that, SurveyMonkey, and do please give us your feedback. It should take not just 2 minutes before you take your exit. But let's also post the survey link on the various handles on the WhatsApp platform so that people can pick it up there. Please join the WhatsApp platform. It's the best way to get involved, to know what's going on. It's been our pleasure to host you on the behalf of Trinity Chapel, which is our home church, and we commend your ways unto the Lord. We pray that God will breathe upon you, God will grant you grace. We pray that the next time we gather, you will have abounded and gone even beyond and above where you are today by his grace. In Jesus' mighty name. God bless you and have a good evening. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Everything.